Hello and welcome to Waiting for Game, a podcast presented by Melee Stats. I am your host, Gimme Dat Wheat, and today we have an episode discussing the landscape of Smash. Yes, very big topic, but I think we are prepared with the people we have to talk about it. And of course, let's get to the people who we have here to talk about it. We have someone who has been rising the ranks of the community and is now someone who I would say is probably leading the new generation of the Melee top brass. And of course, I'm talking about my good friend Edwin Budding. What's going on, Edwin?
Not much, not much. We got a bit of a weird episode coming up ahead, so we have a bit of a strange guest to complement that as
Yeah,
well.
true freak,
Yeah.
real weirdo.
A true whack job. Yeah.
I'm psycho.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you. I'm really happy to talk to you, Contra, as well. How's your week
Thanks for having me on. I'm. It's been a week.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff going on. We're just fresh off the back of both Smash Camp and 420, two very important dates in Smash community. So I'm eager to get into it.
Truly, yes. First, let's talk about what has been, going on with you recently. So, you talk about Smash Camp. That was an event that I know that you helped run earlier in the month of April. You also were the Melee TO for you and Jade, of course, were the Melee TOs for Major Upset, which we had a lot to talk about before and after on this podcast, as it was kind of like a one of the Melee majors of the year so far, of this kind of weird year we've been having. So, how does it feel? You've been kind of leading the charge on a couple different brands in the Smash community lately. How does it feel to have a part in the community to that level with the way that the year's been going?
Well, I don't know. I want to avoid feeling too much or presenting myself too much like a celebrity. I'm just running tournaments, and I have a certain standard that I hold myself to, and I hold the tournaments that I run or I'm involved with to. And I think that, has given me somewhat of a reputation, whatever. That's not what I care about. That's what I'm here to talk about. I do want to stop you. It wasn't just me and Jade that ran Melee. It was mainly the execution was actually my good homie Sheikh Zula, who also helped out with Smash Camp Newlands a lot. Logan is an extremely talented organizer in Portland and runs very smooth brackets. So I just want to give him a shout out before we get too removed from that. But yeah, I mean, Major Upset and Smash Camp this last month took up most of my time, and I'm really happy with how both of them went. And I hope that we can keep up the momentum of good events going into Combo Breaker next month.
Yeah, for sure. Combo Breaker, also something that I know that you are going to be involved with, and another kind of tournament that has to suddenly probably be a bigger part of the scene than it really ever was. I know that there was an announcement. I believe we just hit 200 entrants, which is a pretty big deal for Combo Breaker. Tell me a little bit about what Combo Breaker means to you and why this is so important to the scene for people to go to Combo Breaker.
Yeah, so I first went to Combo Breaker in 2019. I was invited by Curly, who is one of the directors, to help manage one of the ballrooms. At the time, the venue had, I think, 4 different big rooms that they were operating in, and they wanted help with the one that had Smash Ultimate and all the tag fighters, which I love. Tag fighters, Marvel and BlazBlue and Dragon Ball are all fun games. I don't play any of them very seriously. But when I went in 2019, I was so impressed with the amount of games that they were able to support and the quality at which they were able to support them. They had, I think, 25 main title games at Combo Breaker, and it was like the biggest event for 7 or 8 different games. And it had really good representation for like all of the major fighting games. So I being in that environment and working with those people, I felt like there's no reason why Melee shouldn't be here, and I'm going to do what I can to prove that the community is ready to show up again, because it had previously been at Combo Breaker the prior years, but it didn't have great representation. Part of that is because it was near the same weekend as Smash and Splash for years. And I also think part of it has to do with the way the community thought about events that were primarily FGC at the time. The 2 or 3 primary examples of that were like Evo, which had a long time had a reputation for being just a really bad tournament for Melee. CEO, which I feel like it's fine, and Combo Breaker itself. But it was never very well attended at Combo Breaker, so they pulled it. But Rick, this last year,
R famously made top 8 at Combo Breaker.
Yeah, the best Kirby ever.
Yeah, if there's anything that needs to be said about Combo Breaker not being very well attended, I think that probably says it.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's okay for there to be tournaments that are smaller. I think that's fine. I think that's even desirable in many ways. But Combo Breaker is an event that 7,000 or 8,000 people go to every year. It's in. I think their current venue is very great. There's not a lot in the area. It's like a suburb, but that's fine. It's in Chicago, which is very easy to travel to for most of the world. And it's an extremely well put together event. Rick and Margot do an excellent job, and everyone involved. And I think we as a community should be very excited that we get to have a place at Combo Breaker. And I'm really proud of how good the response is. My goal going into it was, I hope that we can hit at least 200 entrants. That would be a success to me outright. And we've hit that already with another month to go. So if you haven't registered, please register at start.gg/CB2023. I'm pretty sure.
Hope it takes people there.
Let me double
whatever
check.
it takes to do, register for it.
Yeah, it's CB 2023. Is that right? Surely. Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
But I think, whether it's considered a major or not, that's not really something I care about. I feel like we as a community have never been extremely good at deciding what is a major beforehand, and we only really decide after the fact. You might be mad at me for saying that, Edwin. I know you and all the other people in the historic Melee stats like to define majors pretty strictly, but I think it doesn't matter. It's a tournament, and 200 people are going, and you should also go, and it'll be fun.
I mean, this is 2023. This is the year of the regional, I would call it. So being a regional, if that's what it ends up being, is definitely nothing to scoff at. Now, Edwin, I know we've talked about stuff like this before, but it's pretty interesting to see how the scene views Combo Breaker, right? We are someone who we have been for years, kind of hoping that Evo picks Melee back up, even if people say that we don't need it, or even if people say that we don't want it. Obviously, this is something where every time they have a reveal and Melee or Smash is not involved, I do think that everyone has a tinge of pain, and yet we kind of view stuff as CEO and Combo Breaker as not really worth it. We talked about it before, how we used to be in a buyer's market where if you are a tournament attendee, you can pick something that is convenient and cheap and fits your specific needs because there's so many tournaments. And yet, as 2023 moves on, we're kind of realizing that this year might not fit the same kind of qualifications. So, what do you think about Combo Breaker this year, Edwin? Do you think that this is going to be something where the community is going to actually show up and attend? And how important do you think it's going to be in the landscape this year?
Yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see, right? I think Combo Breaker, for whatever it's worth, usually in the years it runs, something doesn't have to be a major for it to be a really fun event, or for it to feature fun players that are good to watch, right? One of my favorite things of watching Combo Breaker every year was seeing the Midwest show up, right? You could typically see people like Duck or KJH at Combo Breaker, and it creates this fun little dynamic where you have a bunch of people from different states kind of within the broader Midwest, all coming together for this tournament. And you sort of see a lot of rivalries of like maybe the best of Michigan plays the best of Illinois and stuff like that. Kells was someone that you would see back in the day,
Yeah.
or people like Kells. So I think is it going to be the kind of high stakes major like what Shine was in the past, or something like SmashCon, let alone Genesis or Big House. No, but that doesn't mean that it can't be special in its own way. I think some of the most fun tournaments I've attended and some of the most fun tournaments that I've watched as a spectator ended up being regionals, and even regionals of like 200, 300 people without a top 10, top 5 player, top 10 player there. They end up being really fun. There's a reason I think very positively of the first gang that I ever went to. That was a great tournament. I actually feel like a tournament like Combo Breaker and a lot of events by the old EGTV crowd are actually some of the events that I remember most fondly, both from having attended them and just watched them. So will it be a major? At least right now, I don't think it will be, but I don't think it has to be to be successful, and I don't think it has to be to have a presence in the scene, as we sort of are in this transition period from a year of circuits and big events going on like every weekend for a quarter of the year. So now we're trying to figure out what this new landscape looks like.
2023 is definitely going to be an interesting year when we talk about Melee. As I mentioned before on the show, kind of feels like we are detailing week by week Melee's downfall, kind of like Captain's log of this game dying. But I obviously don't believe that. But yeah, you're right. 2023 is going to be interesting because it is kind of passing the torch from what 2022 was, which was this very big year that was headlined by multiple majors and multiple circuits and kind of tournaments that were not really going to be majors that were then buoyed by these circuits. And leading to 2023, we don't really have that. Obviously, we don't have Special Tour, we don't have Panda Cup, and because of that, we are seeing kind of a drop in what these major tournaments are. We talked about it a while back, but tournaments like Major Upset and Collision are tournaments that probably in a normal year would not be as big majors as they ended up being, but because of lacking events from like VGPC and other tournament organizers that would put stuff on. Hey man, calm down. You come on the podcast.
Sorry, keep going. You're doing great.
2023 is the year of regionals, and speaking of another Chicago regional, we had one just this past week. This past weekend, we saw 3 major regionals. Major regionals, what does that mean? We saw 3 regionals that featured multiple major players. We saw Out of the Blue in Chicago, we saw the Come Up in Toronto, and over in New Jersey, we saw Scarlet Classic. Between them, they featured Amsa, Moki, Cody Schwab, Crudo, Ginger, Zamu, Aklo, Nunn, and these are things that we didn't see last year. If the story of Melee in 2023 might be the loss of kind of big tournaments, but I think if there's talk about that's going on, it has to be followed about talk about regionals, because they are something that this year already are more well attended than I saw in the past few years. So Connor, as someone who, Edwin has mentioned, you with EGTV and now level 1 have definitely ran your fair share of majors. I know that you've kind of transitioned in the past few years to running more major tournaments as opposed to smaller tournaments. But what do you think the regional has in the current day? What's its place in the current day Melee landscape?
So this is where I'm going to actually challenge you, because I actually, in a way, I kind of disagree with the premise that that 2023 is all that much different than 2022. Obviously, we're missing the 2 major circuits, and VGBC isn't running, and Summit, and VGBC isn't running major stuff. However,
I think you're already wrong.
In the grander tapestry of Melee, if we ignore the fact that these are organizations that are less involved or not involved, in 2022, that was a weird year from the get-go. We had Genesis get pushed back 3 entire months. Genesis, the biggest tournament of the year, got pushed back. There was almost nothing for the first 2 or 3 months of the year. And in total, I'm looking at the calendar for 2022 right now. There are like 70, not even, entrants in the entire calendar for all of 2022 for Melee. For 2023, just of announced events, we already have 45, and we're in April. You know, there's 2/3 of the year left to go. There's a bunch of stuff that's unannounced. I know for a fact. I don't think it's going to be that much of a down year like you think it might be. And I also think that regionals have always been there. They just didn't get as much attention last year, because last year was highlighted by a ton of stuff that got big boosts from Panda Cup and the fucking pizza, what's it called? Papa John's sponsorships.
John's, okay, yeah.
Those were huge. I feel like without Papa John's, stuff like Low Tide City and Lost Tech City and I don't know, a bunch of stuff would not have been events the size that they actually were.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
But
so
I
feel like
kind of the point, isn't it? Is that last year was bolstered by these things, and yeah, Low Tide City and Lost Tech, or Low Tide was the one Pipsqueak won. Let's go Pipsqueak. Lost Tech City was not a tournament that would garner Mango, Amsa, Plup, and HBox and the like in a normal year, but last year was a normal year, and obviously there is a bit of a difference. Edwin, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this.
I think I see what both of you are saying, and I think there's merits of truth in both of them. However,
Tell us who's more correct.
I think Wheat is more correct here, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I think Wheat is more correct here. I think in addition to those two circuits being around and incentivizing people to go to events, I think the presence of Summit on its own, as very obvious as it is, as a reason for both established top echelon players to go to events to try to qualify for Summit and whatnot. I think that, plus even giving opportunities to other top 50 players to make it through a deep run, like a Dreffen in 2019 or something. I think the loss of something like that really, at least intuitively, maybe I could be incorrect on the data. Maybe people end up showing up to more events anyhow this year, but my gut feeling is that it'll depress attendance rates among people in the top 50 and 100 by the end of this year. Maybe that's incorrect.
I definitely think it'll depress some people, some like specific people's ability to attend things, like Josh Mann, for example, until he moves back to NA. But like, I think it's really only going to affect the very, very top, like 0.1%, like your Mangoes. For example, I feel like Mango is going to go
Say that in a Bernie Sanders voice.
No.
Okay.
I can't do impressions.
Connor, if I can add one more thing.
Sure.
So I think the attendance rate among that group of players, the reason why I'm focusing on that, I guess as a metric for as one metric for health for the scene, is because that small group of players also affects viewership for these events and the channels in which these events are streamed, right? Which in effect affects their ability to pitch to a sponsor and get money into the scene. So I think for me, maybe even more so than the attendance rates, maybe the attendance rates of those players is the same kind of dispersed throughout the year, but I feel like without it being consolidated into either the Summit Sphere, the Smash World Tour Sphere, or the Panda Sphere, or just like a vehicle to sort of centralize people or to drive people to go to events consistently through the year, ending in a really big one. I feel like that does sort of, even if the scene can move past it, I feel like it does hurt a little bit if that creates a different environment.
Yeah, but I don't think that's like, I think something that you mentioned is that sponsors are an important aspect of viewership. That's true. I don't think that events that exist in our current climate are going to be able to succeed very much, especially compared to last year, in getting sponsors that matter. Simply because I feel like the economy of esports right now is just tanked. Mm-hmm. So
Yes.
I don't think that's
Absolutely.
relevant to Melee's health. Generally, I think Melee's health is fine comparatively to everything. I think last year was
Maybe
a hallmark
comparatively,
year.
I could see that comparatively, but I'm not quite as bullish that it'll be fine. I'm bullish that it'll be fine overall. Like Melee will not die, but
Yeah,
I think I see the impact a little more directly.
I
There's
think
something else I'd want to bring up in this as like a byproduct, but sorry, you can continue.
I think just the other thing that I was going to say is just um, I think 2021 and 2022 people were sort of gearing up and getting ready to join the Melee wave as it entered like a new echelon of success, and everyone was going to start making actual wages and feeling good about spending time and effort on Melee. And what's happening in 2023, obviously the economy isn't doing great, esports isn't doing great, everything's sort of doing a backslide, but it's not going lower than it was in like 2018, for example. It's just going back to that grassroots, hobbyist thing. And I think that's fine. I don't think, obviously, I would prefer being someone that would definitely benefit more than others from Melee as a real esport universe. I would definitely prefer that, and being able to be paid living wages is great. But I think it's also okay if our community sort of takes a step back and goes back into the world of there's like 4 or 5 tournaments a year that everyone goes to, and that's kind of it. And then there's 15 or so more tournaments that some people go to in different places, and we call those regionals. And I don't think there's a problem with that. And we just have to accept that the growth that we expected is either getting pushed back or not going to happen. And I think that's fine. And I think we just have to feel okay with that.
I think
What do
we're
you
kind of
think?
agreeing on just using different terms because, when we talk about how 2023 is going to be a year that is more based on regionals, it's not saying that, right, there's nothing about the health of the scene in talks like that. Obviously, we've had sky is falling conversations before, and, it feels like every single week there's news that kind of makes people go back to it. But at the end of the day, you're right. What we talked about in 2021 and 2022 can't be talked about without mentioning the fact that these were pretty anomalous years, right? Everyone is coming back from COVID, and because of that, the events that are able to come back early and quick are the events that are run by big organizations, right? It's going to be a lot more difficult for a regional to come back in a year where COVID's still around, like 2021, or a year where Omicron has pushed everything back, like 2022, because they just don't have the capital to throw events in the same way. And honestly, a lot of the people who ran regionals might not have even stayed in Smash throughout the pandemic. So yeah, I agree that the past 2 years, there's no way we can talk about them without talking about how weird they were. And 2023 is why kind of I think I'm more okay with what's going to happen, right? What we're seeing might be a little weird to people who have joined the Melee in the past few years. This is not a year that you've probably seen if you joined through Slippy or if you joined even a few years before, because we are missing a lot of the tent poles of what Melee used to look like, right? There's not the majors every couple weeks like there used to be. But the fact of the matter is that Melee has been like that for such a long time. And we're actually getting back to a point which I haven't seen since before the pandemic, which is all these regionals. And I don't think it's, we mentioned it, right? I don't think it's bad for something to be a regional, because what I mentioned here, we saw Ginger, Zamu, we saw Ben, we saw multiple different top 100 players out of the blue. We saw Moki beat Amsa. That's literally 2 top 10, top 5 maybe players. We saw Akla. We saw Nunn. We saw that at a different. We saw Zuppy, who just had an amazing run at Collision, right? We saw all these people, and then you get another tournament the same day, which is Cody Schwab, maybe one of the best players in the world. You got Crudo, who's a very good player, and you've got a bunch of players like Craig and Mott Money and stuff like that who are on the come up. And these types of things we didn't really have, right? We had last year we had Cody talk about how regionals didn't even matter and that they shouldn't be counted for rankings, which I like. We can clown on that all we want, but what I love to see is that The difference between this year and last year is that people are pretty willing to throw their weight behind smaller events, which they weren't in years before. And honestly, that's probably a good sign for the scene to survive, right? Having these events bolstered by Panda Cup and Smash World Tour, stuff that obviously, didn't end up. I'm not sure if that's healthier than having events that are smaller, local, homegrown, that have top players who want to go to them. Edwin, what do you think?
I think in addition to a player like Cody Schwab going to regionals now and competing with a lot of rising talent, we're seeing someone like Cody Schwab stream these regionals. This is a very interesting dynamic that I've started to take note of. It's not necessarily new. It has been done before in Smash, but the extent to which I'm seeing it pop up is really quite fascinating. You have Kilroy being streamed on Mango's channel. You have Cody streaming these regionals that he's going to. Obviously, this is a little different, but you have HBox streaming his Netplay weekly.
Major.
We don't have to get in. Yeah, it's major. Yeah, so we don't have to get into the quality of this weekly and how it compares as a competitive standard to other things. But we're seeing these top. We're seeing them sort of as the lines between stream producer and event runner and top players becomes a little blurred in this post-summit age. We're seeing this very interesting new dynamic, and I'm fascinated to see how it continues for the rest of the year, whether it's at majors or whether it's just at regionals. I wonder, I had this thought the other day that, like, Smash has always had events catered around charismatic individuals or branded around individuals, right? The most obvious example of this is Ludwig, but even back in the day, like in the West Coast, but in the Brawl era, you had events like Nice Shot Hugo or Good Shit German, Don't Go Down There, Jeff. In our generation of Smash, before the pandemic, we had something like the Roast of Hugo Gonzalez, and we had we had the Mango series. So I almost wonder if as regionals kind of become more common and as majors transform into something a little different than what we're used to in the past, I almost wonder if this age of top players attending regionals and streaming them, if we start getting events catered more around these sort of key influencers within our scene. And I wonder what kind of dynamic that adds to this post summit ecosystem we have. I'm very curious. Connor, have you noticed this too? Am I tripping here? Is this a real thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see where you're going. I think individually branded stuff is cool, but I think I don't really see it ever becoming like the bread and butter or whatever of the scene, or like the premier events. Obviously, there's like
not like Genesis or Big House.
No. Yeah, the one exception is there's long been rumors of Ludwig's $1 million event or whatever. That's probably. Their ambitions for that are extremely high. I've talked to Aiden a lot about it. Not a lot. I've talked to Aiden about it a little bit. If they ever do pull it off, that will probably... I would guess it would be a one-time thing, frankly. I'd be happy to be wrong. But beyond that, like, Mango will run his thing sometimes. We saw like him try and do Netplay. It was crypto sponsored, so it was a little, but I think if we become dependent on branded events like that, then we start running into trouble when those people want to stop, because they can't really pass the reins off. If there's a tournament called the Mango and Mango wants to retire, what do you do? Like the Lucky? That's not going to be as popular. I love Joey. I think Joey's really fun, but it's not going to be the same.
Strays.
On the flip side, though, if Sheridan, for example, wanted to stop running Genesis, he could give it to someone else, and it could still be called Genesis and hold the same prestige that it has, and probably be fine, and almost nothing would change, except that Sheridan and Bobak would no longer be at the helm, or whatever. That kind of thing, I think, is more sustainable and healthier than depending on individuals. Can you imagine if there was a major that Armada ran, and then he retired in 2018, and that major is now gone.
Android
that
would
would
do
suck.
just great.
Yeah, I mean,
I go to
I'm
Android
sure
Con.
you could keep it going, but it wouldn't be the same. One person
Me
that you
and Wheat
missed
would be there.
that I want to
You'd
shout
be at
out,
Android Con.
Zane.
100%.
Actually, I think every week or every other week or something
Yes,
has the
that's another
cave
example.
on his channel, and I think that's really cool. I think that should happen more. I think in the absence of BTS Smash, they're still around, but with them becoming less available or less whatever, I think putting stuff on Ludwig or Mango or Zane or Cody or whoever the fuck wants it, I think that's cool. I think it's a cool solution, and I think we should do it more. Or Level 1 TV, great channel.
That's fine. We'll pass. One thing that we mentioned a couple episodes back, we had Magi on in an episode that probably will go down as second most unfortunate behind the lost COVID denial episode. Because we talked about the importance of like esports teams in current day Melee, and in that episode, Edwin and I and Magi, of course, but I posed the question to Edwin, if he feels more confident in the traditional esports companies, I guess kind of like your C9s and your unfortunate TSM and CLG, or the creator-backed esports companies that are popping up, most moguls. Jesus Christ, Moist Moguls. Hey, it's not. Yeah, I don't think it's a good name. It's their fault, not mine. We should call it Moimo.
I'm pretty sure I answered the organization.
You did.
I answered
you answered the organizations, and I pushed back on it just a little bit.
Within a week.
I love to be right. But
within a week. Oh my god.
One thing I think that we've learned from that is that it's kind of unprecedented, and what we're going to come up with in the near future is something that I think is going to be really hard to predict, and something that, looking at the past, might not be incredibly emblematic of what's going to happen in the future. Because in terms of what I view from esports or streamer culture as a whole, is that it really just does seem to be moving more and more towards these specific brands of these influencers, more than it was years ago. And I wonder, and not something where I believe that Genesis is suddenly, going to be called like, HBox's Funhouse or whatever. Although I would go to HBox's Funhouse.
Yeah, but I don't know why Genesis would be the one to change.
Yeah,
it.
why
It should be
Genesis?
The big house.
Hey, they got
the big
bought
house.
out. He's got a lot of money. I don't know what to tell you. He just got a new job.
Team Liquid
Which
presents.
we'll talk about later. But I don't think that'll be a thing that's going to happen, because the brands of Genesis and Big House are so strong. But when you talk about brands, it might be something where the branding of these content creators is so strong that they might be edging out anything that wants to pop up, any new thing. We haven't really seen like a new large major, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do see companies try to get in and try to do that, or if not run a major, just because it's so so much involved, but maybe more companies that want to do what Moist Moguls does, right? Want to sponsor a top player and get to brag about it, and everyone says, oh, that's Ludwig's guy, and then you watch a video on Ludwig's channel about how he did well and stuff like that. I think that people have such a strong connection to personal brands, more so than they do to the brands that like a C9 or Evil Geniuses used to have, that were more analogous to like real life sports.
Not only do I think what you said is exactly on the money, I would also want to add that the value of the event to a prospective sponsor or advertiser, it's almost as if the personal brand of the influencer behind it provides a shield of sorts, right? Because then the value to the advertiser isn't the danger of the Smash IP or not as much as it would be for another event. The value of the event is that it's Ludwig, or that's another influencer, or it's that people want to tune in to see what Charlie is up to, right? Just using that as a random example. So in a sense, like, I don't think it's not a coincidence that influencers, when it comes to streaming other video games or wandering into this murky territory, are able to they don't have to deal with the same constraints that an organization that's maybe more grassroots and and has less of that shield than those influencers has to deal with. I don't think, or excuse me, if I could just find another way to put it, I don't think it's a coincidence that those influencers give some semblance of plausible deniability to another sponsor or another advertiser that wants to get involved, if that makes sense.
I think that's a great point. I also think the other reason, something that we mentioned that I want to touch on real quick, you said that we don't see very many big tournaments pop up. It's because of how much goddamn money it costs to run one of those things and what financial risk you're. It has, which is something I think, nothing to do with anything else except for the price tag. That's literally
which is something that these large influencers have, right?
Yeah, but even why would they do that? These events always lose money. There's no reason for an influencer like Ludwig, except for Ludwig. There's no reason for someone like fucking Moist Critical or Disguised Toast to invest like what $500,000 into something that's going to lose at minimum $20,000, $50,000, $100,000. Like it is the majors that we are comfortable with, that we have come to expect, are not sustainable in the way that they exist right now, and with the price tag that organizers are. This is a good transition to Shine, because I think Shine.
Hey, you don't do the transitions around here.
Sorry, you're right. I'll let you do it. But I just think it's crazy to say like, oh, why aren't we seeing new majors? It's because they're really expensive. Expensive.
I think it's a bit of a mischaracterization. As I'm not saying that suddenly there's going to be like a major and it's going to be run by XQC or something, right? You know, sure. I don't believe that that's to be the case. But I do think that EVO is a good example of kind of what is a path forward. It's kind of like how it exists in the actual celebrity world and not the e-celebrity world, is that it really doesn't matter how much any of these celebrities put into it, but having a palpable name to throw along. Like we see this a lot of times in startups where it's like, hey, come to Blaze Pizza, LeBron owns it. LeBron's not making the pizza, right? It's like, but having fair. A name that you can throw around, it's very helpful to for brands, because it is, you associate with the person who it's a lot easier to associate with that. So yeah, I mean, does Pokimane run Evo? No, but do people associate Pokimane with Evo? You know, do fighting games players, I guess, associate Evo with Pokimane is probably the better way to put it. Yeah, and I think that, you know, that could be something that we see more in the future if anyone wants to get into anything, or if, like, say, you know, you have a tournament that already exists, probably not in the Melee space, that might be a little too small to garner anyone. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we see more large streamers connect, even if it's in name only, right? Just like brand partnerships. And that could be a future of seeing stuff like that. We already saw like Mr. Beast kind of cover a lot of the Ludwig event. But yeah, you're right. It's an interesting thing, and I think that we are going to find out more and more how this is going to affect the scene, because the brands of these individuals are bigger than they've ever been, and I struggle to see that ever changing, especially as the brands of our large tournament series are kind of waning. And, speaking of one of the largest brands we have in the scene, we are coming off of some pretty big news. And this was, I believe, last week, which Shine announced their upcoming year, 2023. And in the same announcement, they did also announce that it will be their final year. So they ran in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. And I believe they only came back last year. They did not run in 2020, obviously, or 2021. But 2023 is going to be their final year. This is something where, if you are probably a lot of people in the Smash scene, you might not know of a Smash World without Shine. A lot of the people who are probably watching content, a lot of people who are entering tournaments, a ton of us have obviously been around since before then. But 2016 is a time where, Smash is at its biggest and people are getting in. Edwin, you are obviously someone who is, very close to Shine. That is kind of your major. New England has been represented by Shine more than like anything else. What is your reaction to the news of Shine's their final year?
Yeah, so it's sad. Shine was my favorite tournament to attend every year, not only because of it's hosted in my home region, but because I really thought that out of all the majors that I've been to, Shine consistently delivered the best playing experience. whether that was playing in tournament or playing friendlies or these stay in your lane brackets or whatever. Shine was really the players' major, in my opinion. So obviously heading into talking about any major, my heart is always going to go out to New England because it's the major that I got into the scene through. But with Shine in particular, the thing that you, if you have to know something about what this tournament did every single year, whether it was in Boston or it was in Worcester, it really excelled at delivering a major made for people who want to play the game with their friends and play the game with other people. And I think that's a presence, at least within the North American scene, that I'm really gonna miss, and I think it's a shame that the series is ending after this year. I can't say I'm too surprised given the trajectory of the series, as well as the fact that the DCU contract, the contract they have with the venue was set to expire at the end of this year, and I know just personally speaking, a lot of the people behind the series, including the head organizers, are just at different points in their life right now where they want to move on from this. And I just think that I can't really blame them for it. I think it's a shame just overall for the scene, but I will I'll celebrate some of my favorite Smash memories came at the Shine series every year, and I'll always look back on it fondly.
Looking forward to the Monday Morning Marth top 50 Shine moments. Speaking into existence, making you do it. Let's say top 100. Let's make you do a lot of work. Connor, what are your thoughts on this? So Shine has been one of the largest majors in terms of both prominence in the Melee scene, but also in terms of just pure entrance. For the past couple of years, it's been around. What are your thoughts on this being the last year for it?
I have never been to Shine. I remember when it was first announced in 2016. I was still in high school. And I thought, wow, I've always wanted to go to Boston. I've never been to Boston still. So I'd love to go to this someday. But it was always, super expensive to fly out to for me because West Coast to East Coast is just like super deep. And I'm really sad to see it go.
Portland Airport's kind of expensive. Don't just blame West Coast to East Coast.
No, but I mean, I'm spending no less than like $300 on a ticket at absolute minimum to go from anywhere on the West Coast to anywhere on the East Coast, which to a high schooler is a lot of money. But I mean, what we talked about it before. These things are huge financial risks. We saw Shine move from it was at the waterfront in Boston, right, for some of its years, and it has moved to a pretty deep suburb, to my understanding, of Boston now to save money.
It's in Worcester, a different city, just they're more out there. Yeah,
right. So I think that speaks to me about like how difficult it was to keep running, and it's impressive to me that they were able to take something with no history. Sort of. It had Matt.Zeb attached to it for the first several years, and Matt.Zeb had a lot of really good history in the scene. But they went from basically nothing to one of the 4 biggest tournaments of the year, I'd say. And
not counting summits.
I think that should not be counted out, and I think they should feel good about what they were able to do with the product. And I think it's fine to say, all right, good run. It's sad. I wish they could keep going. I wish it wasn't such a huge risk and so much work for not a lot or negative. But I don't know. I think you mentioned the stay in your lane thing. I think that's super cool. I've always been like Aiden and I, when we were running tournaments, mainly Aiden, he was always thinking of crazy ideas. We were trying to find ways to make every player experience better. And I think Shine really found the exact right balance where it's like not a whole lot of work to put together comparatively to some other potential experiences. But it gives a lot of people the option to do a lot more with their venue fee or their time or their entry or whatever you value. And I think that's something that we should respect about the Shine series. And, context matters, and I don't think Shine ending is necessarily a dooms, like
Sure.
a death knell for other majors. But I will say something that I have noticed is people don't know how much these things cost, and they aren't willing to pay what I would call an appropriate price for a major most of the time.
Well, speaking of that, I think one of the things that is really kind of poignant when we talk about how Shine is ending up is how it started, and I think this will probably be lost on a lot of people who were not around at the time, but because they probably know Shine is this really big thing. But yeah, Shine, as I mentioned, it started in 2016, and for those who weren't around, it had a pretty unique way of going about kind of the transparency in how much costs are associated with this, which in 2016, a year where was I think you could call 2016 the biggest year for Melee, probably by far, was pretty interesting. I'm not sure if a lot of people were able to grasp just how much this was. Maybe you could ask the average person; they might understand that these events can lose money. But I think that Shine, they introduced themselves and they basically said that they wanted to throw a major in Boston, and was pretty upfront about how much it's going to cost, and were pretty upfront about how much they were going to lose. They were willing to lose a lot the first year, and I believe that they, Edwin, you might remember more than me. I think there was like a pre-reg aspect of it where they like needed a bunch of people to like actually say that they were going to go basically before they were ever going to start, which was very odd to see. And that transparency now, when talking about its ending, I don't know, it feels a little touching to talk about this whole thing, or this major that started in a very expensive part of the city, which was very open about the fact that it was losing money. Maybe in a way that we like should be grateful that it ran this long. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it came into the scene, how it's leaving the scene. And Edwin, I don't know if you have any thoughts specifically. This is obviously, you're from New England. You are someone who has been playing before 2016, so this major popping up was probably pretty important. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on just the way that they got into the scene. I remember it was being very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason it was so special for New England and like Boston at the time is because there had been events like Viva La Smashdicalism that ran in New England in the past. That you could find regionals with top players there, or things that maybe retroactively we would look at as majors. But the scene for a regional scene as sort of historic as New England, it never had a really bona fide major like Shine before. It was a first for a scene that had been around for basically as long as any regional scene in America. So it was almost like finally New England has been in the scene for so long. This was the major that put it on the national map. And I think there's a certain kind of there was a magic to the first Shine when it happened. It was in the Seaport. It was in Boston. It was for a scene that had its own big history in the rest of the community, but it was finally front and center in front of everyone. You had people from the West Coast coming. I remember being so excited that Pew Pew was coming for some reason. This is back when Pew Pew was in that contention for top 15, top 10 spot or whatever. And I remember that for some reason, PPU and S2J being there was like, oh my god! And then we learned that Mango was going. Oh, it was just, yeah. It's some of my favorite memories are the anticipation I had for Shine. I remember I actually housed Ambi for that Shine as well. This is before
that was pre-Melee stats.
Yeah, this is before we became a lot closer. But yeah, I housed him when I was still living with my parents. Well, I guess my parents housed him, but yeah. So I have a lot of fond memories of the series, a lot of personal times that I look back upon, and it's a little sad knowing that those times are over. But it was a great contribution to the scene. It was just really something so spectacular, and I think when you look at some of the best majors, like the really big events from 2016 to now, but really more so like the back end of the 2010s. You think of Genesis, you think of Big House, you think of Evo even near the end, and then after that you kind of have Gommel and you have Shine and SmashCon all kind of in this sphere of really big majors that aren't Genesis or the Big House or Evo. And I think that Shine did a really wonderful job cementing its place within in the scene. And though I'm sad it won't be around, I'm happy that it happened at all. And I don't think this will be the last time a major is held in New England or Boston or Worcester. I think it will happen again. Even if it's not Shine, something new will come out of it. The scene is too big. It has too many dedicated people. It has too many different generations of contributors as well. I think New England will come back from this. I really think so, and I think this last Shine is going to be a really great one.
Yeah, I'm hoping to make it out. I was looking at flights.
I think it should be good. The community is very supportive in times like these. Which is always, I mean, hey, that's why we survive, right? You know, the community is always pretty supportive, but really kicks into gear when necessary, and I think that's why we're still here, why we can still talk about Melee. But speaking of stuff that is kind of still here, we have been seeing in the past couple of years fewer and fewer large brands stick around, and even stuff this year. We didn't see Pound. We didn't see Double Down. Of course, two VGBC tournaments, which were end up being like relatively big last year in terms of their importance to the scene. And Main Stage, a tournament that honestly you could probably make a claim for that being the most important tournament of last year, even if it wasn't as big as Genesis or Big House or stacked as a lot of Wigs event. Main Stage, what it represented last year was kind of a beacon of hope during a time when people thought that Melee was not going to survive. And in a kind of cruel twist of fate, Main Stage actually was the one that was not fit to survive, and we won't be seeing Main Stage that year because of BTS. Shine is obviously going to their last year, and I think that there could be some questions about the future of events like Riptide and stuff like that. So Connor, I have to ask you, are majors dying?
No, I mean, one thing that does worry me a little bit. I don't want to sound the alarm or anything, but there's a generation of organizers that have been around for a long time. Sheridan, Bobak, Juggle Guy, Nintendude, that typically are the people who are directing these majors. And they are able to do that because they have careers and good paying jobs and stability, usually. And if that generation of organizers decides, we've done this for 10 iterations, because 10 just happened last year. Genesis 10 is coming up. I think that's a good time for me to stop. Then I feel like the next generation of organizers, people like myself or, Stock or whoever. Sorry, mine is turning a blank.
Can only think of yourself.
I am
we've
not
seen a lot of people run majors
financially.
in the past few years.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not ready to take on the financial burden of a major. I couldn't afford the losses that like people like Sheridan come to expect. So if we come into a situation where these long-term organizers decide that they don't want to do it anymore for whatever reason, it might not be. We might have a little lull, like a couple years, where because it takes. At minimum 18 months to plan a major. You have to decide and have a date. I would say I think 18 months before the date. So if tomorrow Sheridan said, "Hey, Genesis 10 is happening on these days in 2024," and then after that our contracts with the venue is over, so we're gonna stop. Then if I or Aiden or whoever the fuck wanted to try and do Genesis 11, we would have to come up with like a shitload of money in 6 months before
Wow,
we
how would
could
Aiden
sign
do
a
that?
contract. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, just like for example, Aiden could.
Of course,
Aiden is
yes.
is one of the people, but I don't think he wants to. It's a lot of work, and it's not a lot of people talk shit, and it feels bad, and you lose money, and you don't hit your viewership or your attendance goals or whatever, and it just like it doesn't feel very good. There are things that feel good about running tournaments. I love running tournaments, and I'll probably never stop. But there are reasons for majors in particular that I think very few people can and are willing to put themselves out there to do. So I think it's a valid fear. But I mean, the things will come around. I mean, we used to call Big House 1. We consider that a major, right? Would you consider that a major?
Well,
No.
No?
Lovage is
Lovage
not a major winner.
Okay.
Lovage
Big
over
House 2
Johnny
is...
in Grands is not
how
a
many
major.
how many people
I
went
would
to Big
consider-
House 2?
I would
Big
say there's like
House
7
2
majors
guy.
at the Big House, maybe, or like 8. Big House 2 is Mango H-Box, and then after that,
Mango H-Box, Fly
Big
as
House-
Fat.
Big House
Fly,
3
like-
was 100% a major.
Yeah, Big House 3 had PP
All right.
H-Box music.
Okay, fine. Let's look at the Big House 3. How many people?
Well-
how many people do you think entered melee singles at the Big House 3? Take a guess, please.
300.
Any number. 300. That's your guess.
Like 220, I don't know.
Okay, both of you super wrong. Way too high. The Big House 3 had fewer entrants than Smash Camp did. It had 172 entrants. So, what we call a major, if it's really just about the quality of the players there, then yeah, we'll have majors we'll have 7 majors a year for the rest of time. I have no doubt in my mind. If you care about entrant count, we might have to start, crowding more or being more okay with caps. I think the size of the venues is bigger than we can actually afford, or than the Smash community is willing to pay for. Because, frankly, I think every major, except maybe Genesis, and even then, I actually think Genesis too, everyone undercharges. Smashers get such an incredible deal going to these majors. They're only paying like maybe $100 to be in a 60,000 square foot, 30,000 square foot, whatever, convention center in a downtown area for 3 days.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, I think ticket sale. I think ticket sale, or excuse me, ticket prices. Right. I guess the functional equivalent for Smash is like very low compared.
I think
to
they
other
are close to
conventions.
half of what market standard would be
It's
for
quite
a similar
quite
event.
low.
It's crazy, and it's reflected in like the some of the anemones and some the pay that staff is getting. Like I don't know. This reminds me of a Reddit thread that Aiden posted in long ago for Flatiron.
Is this the one that I'm thinking
45?
of?
Yeah, where he said
Yeah,
that
okay, I remember
the
this.
stream at any given tournament is a gift from the organizers. That was true for many, many years, and that still, to an extent, is true. But with the advent of Beyond the Summit, like being able to actually convert into real money and being a partnered stream and having an ad minimum and everything, that starts to pay for the stream. But it's still very expensive, and I think unless we start getting sponsors.
Aiden just really wanted to see Con Master hugs.
Hey,
Really,
do you
really
actually
wanted-
do you want to know a secret? I don't know how this got missed, but I said in that thread also that I was the one picking the matches because I was stream runner for Endgame TV. I picked Hugs versus Commaster because 3 weeks earlier they played in Portland and had a game 15 grand finals that was awesome. It was so good. So fuck the haters. That set should have been good, and whatever. It's impossible to know what sets at any given tournament are going to be worth watching.
I think that Xbox got clowned on because for whatever reason, maybe he got clowned on because he was there, like, and someone listened to him. But I believe for Genesis this past year, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna wreck Toussaint. Don't put that on stream," and ended up being wrong. But yeah, no, I agree. There's no way to really figure out what's going on. One thing I will say, I'm going to agree with you on a lot. I'm going to fight you on one specific thing, so I'll fight you first. Big House 3, I believe, was not known for having a lot of depth. The reason why we consider it a major was because it had a lot of top-level talent. And if we're going by what makes a major in 2013, a major in 2023, we're already dead. Like we can't use that as a way of talking about our events. But one thing I'll agree with you with is 100% we are not paying enough. And I know that's, it's hard to put all this together and say, we've got a scene where if you don't go to a certain number of majors, then people will consider you like fallen off or retired, right? It's this really fucked situation of you kind of constantly have to be going to stuff, and that applies to players who are in like lower level top 100, lower level top 50. We expect them to go to all these things without ever seeing money from it, right?
Yeah.
And it's this thing where, so very, 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 very few people in Melee can actually make a living off of it. And yet we expect someone who's going to be like ranked 78th in the world. It's like, no, you have to attend like 4 different things, which includes the cost of flight, a hotel,
flight and housing.
Yeah.
I feel like to be ranked top 100 these days, you have to live in a region that has a large regional at minimum. And also be well enough off to travel.
Yeah, your paladins of the world are always going to be at a disadvantage if they're not. Like,
it's a fucked situation always in terms of that. And then people say like, "Hey, what? I think you should make more than like 3 to 4 majors necessary because Plup I don't think went into enough." It's like, all right, Plup's not I'm not worried about Plup here.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that you mentioned earlier, I've thought about a lot, and we are going to probably get to a point in Melee pretty soon where we have anchor majors. And we might see those as the things that every single person goes to. The kind of the ways that it used to be, the ways that, it was before I was going to majors, was that you kind of had these really, really important ones. You had like your Apex and your, Genesis or your Pound or something like that, and which everyone would go to. And I think other than that, we're going to see a pretty big dip. I don't think that we are going to see a lot of majors. I don't think there's going to be suddenly a major necessarily to replace Shine. Although the one thing I'll say about that is Shine was in 2016. What happened the year before Shine was 2015. HGC Throwdown, Paragon, What the Fox, FC Smash, Battle Arena Melbourne, like Sandstorm, Beast, right? Like, all these tournaments don't exist. So Shine was the tournament that came up to be the new version of a lot of tournaments that stopped existing. SmashCon, that was their first year as well. They kind of were the same thing. So it's very possible that Shine could be replaced by a tournament in the next few years that wants to do that. But probably the most realistic situation is that we are going to kind of see what we've seen already, where everyone goes to Genesis, everyone goes to Big House. Maybe you throw in like maybe Battle BC or Gommel or SmashCon as these things, or Riptide maybe, especially now that they don't have the competition Shine going forward after this year. We might see our majors get a little more stacked and a little bigger. Because they're fewer and far between, and because of that, hopefully people are willing to, pay the costs associated. If you're only going to, if there's only like 5 to 6 majors and you're going to a couple of them, I hope that people are able to understand that the costs associated with that are probably going to be a little more expensive. And then, luckily, we have all these regionals that people are now, willing to go to without thinking that they're above it. And that's probably how we're going to see a lot of the scene. It's probably going to be, you see your friends every, 3-4 times a year at stuff that everyone goes to. And then you go to your regionals that you can drive to, or, hey, take a train to Amtrak, sponsored by CEO.
Hey,
or CEO sponsored by Amtrak.
Sponsored by Amtrak. Thank you, Bailey. Yeah,
I do think that the entire landscape is going to be different in a way that hopefully prioritizes fewer, larger tournaments. And because of that, I hope that they are able to charge more, and I hope that the scene is able to pay more, because that's the only reason that these tournaments can sustain, right? You know, we're in a year where we've been in years where we have majors all the time, and you're right, having a tournament downtown for 3 days in a huge convention center that people don't go to because there was one the week before is not a way to succeed.
Yeah.
So hopefully going forward, we see fewer, further between, and because of that, larger and more sustainable.
Yeah, and I think another thing that I'm actually personally expanding more is the destination tournaments. You know, your Smash Camps and your Riptides. I feel like going to a place where there's stuff to do that's not just sit in a room and play Smash, but also having a room where you can sit and play Smash all weekend.
Yeah,
makes it better. I mean, people are more willing to go to that, and we want to do more of those because they're fun. And,
I don't think I want to go to a major again if you did that. He has told me time and time again he refuses to go to Riptide. He's just like, not for me.
Okay.
They don't force you to go in.
You're missing out.
Water park.
You're missing out. You can drink in the menu.
Aaron makes you like just go down the water slide. I don't want to.
Aaron's gonna put you in the dunk tank. Actually, if you come to Riptide this year, we'll put you in the dunk tank for sure.
Oh no.
we're gonna like we're gonna put a bunch of I don't know. Okay, forget what I'm saying. It was a really funny idea. What are the things like the circles, the
lazy river?
The lazy river things. We're gonna put a bunch of those on top of him, and he's not gonna be able to move. And we're just gonna push him around.
Oh my god, that's horrifying. I'm already getting anxious thinking about it.
But yeah, okay. I agree. I think those tournaments are amazing. I hope that they stick around. I know that Riptide specifically has a relatively good deal in terms of what they have, because it is a destination that they want people to go to, and it's a destination that the Kalahari Resort wants people to go to during a kind of a dull time. I hope that we are able to find deals like that and continue with stuff that does not lose money, because there's no sense in continuing all this majors if we keep losing money. But it's not as if money doesn't exist in Smash, because there was an announcement this past week of a pretty lucrative deal headed by someone who is very important to Smash. So Fresh Cut, if you remember, they were a tournament, or not a tournament series. They are a couple different things, I believe. They went through a couple different iterations, and they're finally kind of a content organization. They're kind of a content aggregator, maybe is the best way to put it. Gamer TikTok, to put it in terms that are probably actually clear. They've been around for a little bit. I believe they were helping out with Smash World Tour. I think that they had a segment there that they sponsored, and we've seen them also do a couple other things for tournaments in the past in terms of sponsorships. But Fresh Cut this past year has went all in on Melee, or on Smash, I guess, and has announced that they are going to have a $100,000 Smash Fund headed by their chief Smash organizer. Oh my god! Why did I do it again?
Oh my god!
Their chief Smash their chief Smash organizer, Juan Hungrybox Debienma. They have already announced that they are going to be running basically kind of a souped up version of the Melee Stats Free Agent Showcase, which does still exist. Keep an eye out. They're going to be sponsoring some players in the future by giving them, I believe it's like $2,000 a player to go to majors, which we talk about the cost associated with a major. Honestly, $2,000 probably not very far off. Might sound like a lot to people who don't go to majors.
I was thinking about it.
I think it's a bit much.
I think it's definitely, it's way more than most people would spend. I think you could. I use SmashCon for an example. I could go to SmashCon and pay and not split hotel for $1,000. I could pay for myself to go to SmashCon for about $1,000. I think $2,000 a month. I wonder what strings are attached. I wonder what they can use that money on. If it's literally just like, here's $2,000 a month, try and use it to go to tournaments. I can't imagine there's $2,000 worth of money to spend on tournaments in December or November, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what they're going to do for those months. But I think it's great. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people are going to get it, because in the reply to the Hungrybox, how he's picking is interesting. He just tweeted about it and said, whoever has the most replies. But in a follow-up, he said the 8 people that have the most replies will be qualified for, I guess, probably a next round, because if he picks all 8, that's $200,000 almost. Edwin, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I look, I think it's great when money is thrown into the Smash scene, just in a vacuum. I think money going to players that otherwise would not have the opportunity to travel
There's
to a
gonna be a but.
I think that is a great thing.
But
I also think that it's very funny that Hungrybox, of all people, seems suddenly in charge of how to use this money and how to present use of the money and how to make decisions with this money. And I think that the incentives that drive Hungrybox to do things for his brand or to make decisions, I'm not always convinced that it's necessarily the most earned way to
Edwin,
use
I
this
love
money.
you. You are being so you're tiptoeing around everything. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah,
Because
please
I'll
say
say it. And I have a good working relationship with Juan. I don't know. But I will say that I think that HBox, being the person who is the go-to, the de facto leader for any company that wants to throw a bunch of money, is probably bad for the scene in the long run. Now, is it bad to throw a bunch of money? No, I'm not saying that. But the one that everyone wants to go through and put their money towards is something that makes me kind of worried about what the scene is going to look like. And before we get into it, I don't even know what's going on with this Fresh Cup program. Is it 1 player per month, or is it these players who get paid monthly? They mentioned 8 players, but we don't know. Like Connor said, we don't know if that means all of them get it. We actually don't even know if Melee players are involved, because I don't know if everyone else is like this, or if it's just me who's been through enough Nintendo abuse to hear Smash and then say, like, what type of Smash? You can't just say Smash. So we really don't know anything that's going on with this. And as an organization that also puts money into flying people out to stuff, I think this is super cool. I think that having players at tournaments is amazing. But I do wonder, HBox has the Coinbox. Coinbase has thrown a ton of money into it, and it really does help a lot of people. You have players who are able to get top 8 consistently, are probably able to pay bills and go to majors because of that, and that's amazing.
Cody Schwab's career, it's
true. Right now, yeah, it's what's getting him to tournaments, that and donations, right? So that's an amazing thing. But in the wake of everything we've seen, I happen to wonder, especially after Shine announces that they're closing, that they're ending, and specifically mentioned $10,000 in debt, I have to wonder if going through HBox is the best option. He's a player who I think has done a lot of great for the scene. There's no way you can't act like he hasn't, but he's also complained a lot about how players don't make enough money. He's tweeted about 5th place at CEO, not a big major, making $75, saying it should be more. I know specifically he got eliminated at major upset and immediately walked up to Connor and asked how much 5th or 4th place gets, whatever placing he got. And I think that's fine, right? If you're a top player, I think that you should be able to live off of the money that you make if you are going to be able to place consistently in top 8 of major tournaments. I think that's a fine thing to believe in. I've just seen some things where he'll say that majors should have $15, $20, charges for entering specific events, and then wants it all to go to the players. And it did not help that the first thing that they announced is a player focus thing. This is probably for players who are not able to go to stuff, which is going to be great. But I do happen to wonder, next thing Fresh can announce, is it going to be funding a pop bonus? Because that doesn't ever actually help a tournament that much.
And it doesn't even, in my experience, pop bonuses don't even help players, motivate players to go to your tournament or people to watch your tournament.
Aiden talked about it a long time ago, that if you have a lot of money as a tournament, or if you get any sort of money, that it goes better towards other places, just making the event good, than to having players make more. Because whatever money that Zane is going to make, the extra $1,000, is probably not going to help the scene as much as adding the extra money towards having a experience that people want to go back to,
or an extra 30 setups or whatever. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah. So it does really. I'm kind of two minds about this, because I think that adding money to the scene is amazing, and I love that people still want to bring money to the scene. But at the same time, if this goes to pop bonuses, and if this goes to players, and if this goes to other things that I don't think will sustain, in the wake of Shine literally, saying that they're shutting the doors because of 10K, I have to wonder if this money can't be spent better elsewhere. Edwin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I would not go as far as to say that I think that it is a bad thing. I think Hungrybox.
I did walk that back a little.
You walked it back a decent amount, but yeah, I think first off, Hungrybox is allowed to use this money however way he wants. I am not saying the scene is not entitled to him spending the money in a certain way, to Ludwig spending money a certain way, or any influencer, any big figure. They are free to spend the money as they say fit in Smash. And I think it's a good thing when people throw money into Smash, when they're trying to help the community in the way that they think is right. I also just think that it's appropriate, and I think it's okay for us to talk about where this money is going, pinpoint where money could go in the scene for things to go well, and to question the motives, or to question people's judgment. I think this is a fine conversation for us to have. I think it's okay to see money being put into the scene and not be like, actually, this is the best thing possible. It's good. And if you have any questions, it's bad. I think it's fine for us to have these discussions about, if someone is spending money in a certain way, maybe there's another area that could be good. Maybe it's not the best thing in the world that a chief Smash officer can throw a bunch of money in a prize pot that's going to the top 8 players. Maybe that money is better spent trying to compensate people running a tournament, or in the
shout outs to speaking of a couple different things in this segment. Someone who wants to throw money around a tournament series that doesn't exist anymore. Shout outs to GTX. Because a very similar thing that we went through was the idea of a company that comes in, is touting a lot of money, and basically the idea that there's nothing wrong with them and that we have to agree with everything they say. I think you're right in that. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just, I got to mention GTX because it's going to be dope.
I just know we're going to get comments from people that'll say, you're hating on Hungrybox. He's trying to make the scene better. It's his call of what he wants to do.
Edwin, we don't get enough viewers to get the haters.
I guess we haven't gotten them in a while.
I will say, I think it's probably actually, if I were in Hungrybox's position and a company said, hey, here's $100,000. We would like you to spend it in maybe these ways, but it's up to you. I wouldn't immediately be like, okay, maybe I would say, okay, let's get some other people involved. But I would think I know what to do. I know how to spend this money. Like, of course, this is my community. I know exactly what will help them, what will be perfectly optimal. I don't blame them at all, but I do think maybe it's a blunder on Freshcut's part, depending on one singular human being to make decisions about this, as it appears to be. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's what it is. I don't know the details behind the scenes or anything of how this money is supposed to go out. It could purely just be a PR stunt, and Hungrybox is just like the marketing guy, and the people, Adrian or whoever at Freshcut, are actually deciding where the money goes, and that's fine. Yeah. But I think I'm aware of another organization that wanted to put money in the scene in a vaguely similar way. I think the way they were going to go about it made more sense. They wanted to put together a council, sort of community.
Kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't want to leak anything, but they wanted to put together a council of people to basically vote on how the money was, and they split the money in specific amounts for specific things. Like, they were going to put X amount of dollars towards to sponsor a tournament. They were going to put X amount of dollars to sponsor a player, and they were going to put X amount of dollars to sponsor a bunch of locals. I think that's really cool. And having a council of community members to decide where specifically that is distributed is great and maybe a better way. But I'm not a marketing major. I never figured. I don't know what it actually.
You didn't graduate college.
Yeah, I didn't even go to college.
And you didn't go. I didn't graduate.
I went for a year. Edwin wants to say something.
I'm gonna let him go right after I say this. I think you are spot on in terms of we don't actually know what's going on, right? Like when I'm coming on here and said it's bad for HBox to run this, and then I walked it back, and I will continue to do so. But this, for all intents and purposes, could be exactly what we talked about earlier in terms of someone who wants to get into the scene, who associates with a known brand. And it's worked out well for them, right? We're talking about it here. People have talked about it in the scene. For all we know, HBox is just the guy who tweets about it, and everything's already laid out, right? Maybe Fresh Cut organization comes to him and says, you're going to spend this much money on this much money on this, and then it's just going to look like you chose it. For all we know, that could be the case. So it's really difficult to say. Edwin, what are you thinking?
This is really quick. We're going to do a rotation now, okay? Connor, and then me. We're gonna go in that order. We're gonna say exactly the first three things we do if we were the chief Smash officer of an organization. We had $100,000. You go first.
I take the money and run.
All right, take the money and run. Connor, what about you?
I need two more things, right? It was three things.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah.
I take the money and run. I give Ambi $1,000, and I get Webb's. I don't know. What would I get him? I'd get him a nice gift. That would be what I would get.
You're gonna give Ambi $1,000 over me?
Yeah, his wedding present.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's not my fault that you got married while I didn't have $100,000.
All right, fair. Connor, what about you?
Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick like 4 regionals and give them like $7,000 each or something, $5,000. I don't know, some amount of money. I'm going to give them an amount of money that makes a difference. It's not humongous, but it will help them improve the product. It'll give them a bigger venue. It'll buy them a new room or whatever,
Like $10,000 for each of those regionals or more?
I like 5,000. It doesn't need to be. 10,000 is a lot. $10,000 is a lot. That's like for a tournament like with 200 people or whatever. That's $10,000 is like the entire budget. I don't want to give them double their budget. That's way too much money. But so $20,000 that way. We'll sponsor like 3 players for 5 events, just like they're already doing. And then for the last $50K, I'm gonna buy a train car. And you don't get to know why. That's all I'll say.
I think I know why. I mean, when it comes down to it, I think that Fresh Cut is really just a marketing strategy, and it is something that we've seen similar before, right? How many tournaments do you see? I mean, obviously they're giving 100K, which is more marketing strategy.
I want to hear what Edwin wants to do with it.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. I forgot he was around.
What would you do with it, Edwin?
This is what I would do. I'm not even joking. The first thing I would do is ask Aiden Calvin what I should do with it. I would ask him, and I would keep pestering him over and over and over again if he didn't respond to me the first time. I would do that 3 times, but if you respond to me after the first or second time, then I would set up a call and then do the first thing that he recommends as my third thing.
I wouldn't listen to him. I think you're wrong.
Don't
you're
make
one of those
Aiden,
people who call him pure of heart.
He's got other things. He doesn't want to be the one making.
I would literally trust Aiden with my life when it comes to.
I'm sure you would.
He spent $70,000 on a CS:GO knife.
Yeah, come on. We should not only give Aiden less credit than we are giving him. I love Aiden. I think I respect him a lot. He's the best of us or whatever. But also leave him alone. He's got 100,000 followers on Twitter now. He's got fangirls. Like we don't need to get in his DMs anymore.
Do I ask Robin Harn? What's my other option?
You figure it out. You're smart. Come on.
I can't figure it out. I gotta
ask Mikey. Ask
you know what?
Jackzilla. There are people that
don't ask Jackzilla.
I'm not asking Jack.
All right, how about this? $100,000. We take over a small town in Wyoming, and then from there the money's.
It's not $100,000.
Not Wyoming. It's gonna require different state. Pick a different one.
Edwin, you don't understand it. Is that we don't buy a town. We take it over. We just
This is not your Smash Town idea. Is not.
Yes.
Wait. There's precedent for this exact thing.
We establish enough residents, and then we suddenly we have majority. We elect our own officials. We run the whole thing. We're taxing the people. We have trains going everywhere. There's Raising
my
Cane's
God.
at the end of every block.
This is like a weird
on.
version of that Liberland thing that I read about a while ago. It's like this guy around like the Czech Republic or whatever tried to like claim.
Maybe we do it in the Czech
unclaimed
Republic. It sounds cheaper.
He tried to claim like unclaimed territory or whatever as a separate nation where cryptocurrency was its official currency or whatever. And it was like
honestly, that might be very helpful for Smash. It might get us good money.
yeah, maybe a bunch of countries were like, this is not worth our time. Like, we refuse to acknowledge this. And I think I forget the name of the country, Czechoslovakia or someone was like,
That
yeah,
doesn't
can you?
exist
Or no,
anymore.
it was Croatia. Croatia was like, can you stop like illegally
Yugoslavia.
sneak into our country to try to get to this land? Or sorry, I'm ranting. Yeah, Connor, what were you gonna say?
To go back to Wheat's Smash cult idea, this has happened.
not a cult.
This an
We
actual.
don't kill ourselves.
This has happened happened in
kill
Oregon in the 80s. You may have seen the Netflix documentary about it, but a group of religious people came to Oregon, to a small county in Oregon, and decided be in charge. And we could do the same thing in a good state, not Wyoming. Oregon.
Land is cheap there, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but,
And then
there's
we build it
precedent in Oregon. It's a good state.
No, Oregon's got a lot of like meth, doesn't it? I'd say that
Everywhere
as if
has
Wyoming
meth.
doesn't have meth.
Come on.
True. Well, we'll figure
Oregon
it
is
out.
Baja,
where
California.
we do it.
We need to go somewhere where the rate on the dollar, like the purchasing power it has,
Yeah, Wyoming.
is crazy.
Hokkaido, Japan. The yen is so weak right now.
Is Hokkaido does the U.S. dollar transfer really well in Hokkaido?
Hokkaido is a region of Japan.
Yeah,
So-
I know.
Yeah, I think so.
Edwin, Hokkaido's a region of Japan. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever been to Japan? I'm sure it's very easy to spend your money there as an American. I see a lot of people travel there and spend a lot of money, or less money than
Well-
you'd think on food.
Wait, what do you think of Thailand? What if Melee Stats just gets into Bangkok real estate?
They got
I think
really good food in Thailand.
I think the thing
I
is
believe it.
that we need people. It just can't. It's not like a headquarters, right? We need people to move there. Where did Andrew Tate move? Wasn't that like in
I thought he went to
Romania?
like, Romania.
Romania? Yeah. I wonder if there's some like I disagree with him on a lot of things, but maybe Romania he was right on this one.
Yeah, you don't have to give it to Andrew
Oh.
Tate.
Give it to Andrew Tate. I think he's actually. A real
I
estate
don't know.
genius.
I don't know about Romania. I don't know if they're big fans of, like, for example, people that don't identify as the sex they were assigned at birth.
Yeah, I feel like
I think
Eastern
we
Europe
changed
may
that.
not be the place.
I honestly think that we're
Smash
charming.
community.
We get in there. We change the opinions.
Yeah, Contra. Now that they mention it, I feel like the Smash community may not. I mean, you never know. I think what's his name? Pingy, and like he's from like the western part of Russia or something.
Kingu?
No, Pingy. That's his name. The guy. And there's a Smash scene in Russia. And
Okay.
I know that's not quite the same thing as Eastern.
Someone is saying the Congo in chat.
Ooh,
That's
maybe.
a great idea.
I don't know
Actually,
if the Congo.
I feel like a bunch of white people moved to the Congo at some point in the 1800s. It didn't work out well.
You're thinking
anyway.
of the Kingdom of Belgium, I believe.
Yeah, sorry.
I feel like Ethiopia would be a good place to start a Smash scene. Ethiopia is pretty poppin'.
Have y'all ever heard of Liberia?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can make our own Liberia. All I'm saying is, I think this is a marketing stunt from Fresh Cut.
Oh, certainly. That's all it is.
Because there's also organizations that put in a lot of money, and how they do it is they probably support tournaments, and you don't know about it, right? How many tournaments have you been to, and you see the banner with all the things, and you just glaze on, like your eyes glaze over every single ad that is on stream and every single ad that is on the banner. It happens all the time. So I guess if I have to give them credit, I want to say they are supporting tournaments, and they have to do it in a way that makes sense for their brand, that is not just a name on a slide where people are tabbed out and watching Pokemon when Melee Singles isn't on, right? And it did work out, right? Fresh Cut is a known entity when it wasn't a couple months ago. So I want to believe that the reason why it seems weird to us is a marketing stunt to get their name out there, and hopefully that part of this $100,000 will end up going to tournaments. I don't know. I think there's reason to believe that our hesitations earlier might have been right, and this might be something that, unfortunately, is a little more player focused. But I don't know. All I'm saying is that Fresh Cut, I think they're doing well for the scene by putting this money in, and I just truly hope that this goes to something behind the scenes to make these tournaments run, or goes to buying land in that one, wherever we pick, and running a Smash City.
Kid Nation, but with Smashers.
Yeah, I think that ended up well. That one kid drank a little bit of bleach, but I think it ended up fine.
What if we try to recreate Firefly, but like make it good and not bad?
Are you talking about the
festival?
Fire
Festival. You mean
Firefest? Did I say
Firefly?
Firefly?
I thought you were talking
God.
about the cult classic sci-fi TV show.
Yeah,
No,
I was like, I don't want the
Firefest.
Joss Whedon fans in our mentions. Also, once again, we do not have enough viewers for anyone to get mad at us. They only get mad at us because our audio stinks sometimes. All right. Yes, Firefest. They're doing a Firefest 2. The guy, I don't know if he went to jail or whatever, but he's back, and he's like, Firefest 2.
Same guy?
Yeah, well, its brand is bigger than ever. Unfortunately, failing is not really an option in terms of social media influencers because it just brings your brand more eyes. All press is good.
Failing
press,
upward,
etc.
I would love to fail upward. Please, someone blow me up over something tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm failing sideways right now. Just
give me 10 times the following I have, and I can run
failing.
Smash Camp 5 times a year. That's a promise.
Okay, final thoughts on Fresh Cut since we got a little in the weeds. Well,
I think they should just do the same thing that Papa John's did. Just throw money at tournaments and tell them that they have to do on-screen activations, and then it's better, probably. But again, I don't have a marketing degree. I'm not the guy. I think Papa John's... I bought Papa John's like 8 times last year. Are you kidding?
Yeah, we had an episode where we all ate Papa John's except for Edwin.
Yeah, the previous time that I had Papa John's was, I think, literally never. So, very successful marketing. This Fresh Cut thing, I looked at it. I downloaded the app for Major Upset. That's all I'll say.
It's a little different than, you get a lot less as a person who does it than someone who's eating a pizza.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I did, at minimum, when I bought Papa John's, eat pizza. It was fine.
I think it's all the chain pizza. Oh my, we're going to talk for a while. Edwin, what are your final thoughts on Fresh Cut?
Honestly, I don't really have anything else to say. It's just a money-throwing organization in Smash. Hungrybox is in charge of the money, or at least that's what it appears like. We'll see how it turns out. I really don't have anything else to say.
Interesting. All right. I hope it works out. I think that there is reason to feel hesitancy, but I hope that we will feel foolish in the near future for ever doubting Lord Juan.
Hopefully.
Now, Connor, we've got
I'd
some
love
questions.
to feel foolish. Yes.
We've
my favorite
got
part.
some questions from I will say the questions aren't great. Not that they aren't great. They're very good. We got like 2. So here is
Only
everything
2
that we
questions?
got.
Fuck you.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on that
stats.
kind of distracted people, and we'll come back stronger. I will give the patrons I'll give them. I won't take them a task this time. I'll give them the week off. But our first question is from Danger, and this is a pretty simple one that might have a long explanation. But this
Is this going to be a dang 3er or dang L?
It's not actually. I would say this
Not
is
a Danger.
you might actually consider it. It's possible. But their question is, how do we fix Netplay tournaments? I almost said Melee tournaments.
Oh, how do we fix Netplay tournaments?
How do we fix Netplay tournaments?
Oh, God.
It's a bit of a loaded question.
I think they're trying to get you to say that
I feel like this is for
DevDog
Connor.
deserves $100,000.
Okay, so here's my thing about Netplay tournaments. When I'm going to take my time on these because there's only 2. When the pandemic first came around, I was in the midst of running a local. I had literally on February 29th, 2020, ran Bridgetown Blitz 5. We wanted to do more of that. We had Emerald City 9. I was in the weeds running my tournaments as a little local organizer guy. And then pandemic came out, and a bunch of people were like, oh, well, we don't know how long this is going to be. Maybe we'll just do like 6 or 7 weeklies on Netplay instead. And at the time, right when pandemic struck, Netplay was still delay based. There was no rollback yet. Slippy had not come out. So I ran 3 Netplay at Epic events, 3 of them. And, you know, there were connection issues. There's always going to be connection issues. Whatever. It's Netplay. But something that happened twice was, I won't name names, but that people that would typically be seated entered under other tags. I don't really have a huge problem with that. It's a little annoying. But the thing that I did have a problem with was these people would play with their roommate, who's also a very good player, alternating, which is super not okay. Banned. Like, insta-ban, in my opinion. It hurts the integrity of the tournament. And that kind of thing is, frankly, impossible to police on Netplay, no matter what you do. There's actually nothing you can do to stop people from doing stuff like that, like trading controllers or there's a wide variety of things that you can do on Netplay. You can, in my opinion, widescreen is cheating, not allowed. Turning off screen rumble, that shouldn't be allowed. You can enable, like, there are certain skins that I feel like shouldn't be allowed. There are certain, you can highlight like when someone's inactive or when they miss an L cancel or whatever. Those things all should not be allowed in tournament, but they're not policed at all in Netplay tournaments. And I don't really know how to fix that. So if the question is how do you fix them, is you don't, or you take them significantly less seriously than everyone is right now, and I just don't see that happening. So my answer is you can't fix Netplay. You just have to deal with it. That's just how it is. And I have a lot of respect for all the Netplay TOs. Obviously, Jade was, I would say, one of the biggest players in Netplay TOing over the pandemic. I think it's really hard and takes a different set of skills. But I don't think there is a way to make it as competitively viable as LAN or as feel as good to the players, because everyone's going to feel like, you know, something is bad about it outside of their control. But, you know, Netplay's cool. I think people should keep playing it. Just, you know, take it as seriously as you feel like you should. And maybe $3,000 every 2 weeks is a lot for something as Wild West as Netplay. But that's okay. I think Netplay's cool. I play Netplay every day. It's practice, you know? That's my answer.
And Edwin, I think we've got another one, right?
Yeah, let me just get one out. This one is from Seal.
Question superstar.
Yeah,
I love you, Dev Dog. Also, I see you in
3
chat.
questions. I don't like this. The first
No, give
one,
me all 3.
No, you know what? Never mind. He doesn't get it. Seal, sorry. So yeah, Seal.
The thing is, so this kind of retreads a similar ground to what we talked about before in the episode. I'll just boil it down. What can we do to make the Midwest turn out more to make Combo Breaker really big for Melee?
I think Combo Breaker and the Midwest is a particular specific relationship that I kind of only am aware of secondhand. But my understanding is that, like, the standards that Midwest tournaments are held to for Melee are something that is how do I put this? It is frankly unachievable in many ways for Combo Breaker, because Combo Breaker isn't focused on just one tournament or one event, right? Combo Breaker has 30 games that it wants to all treat equally well, comparative to their size, right? So we can't at Combo Breaker, Melee at Combo Breaker can't have, like all best of 5 or everything recorded or like multi-elimination format or whatever. Just because they can't spare the resources from the other games to accommodate for Melee. Because if they let Melee do something like Quadalim or whatever, like crazy format that we want to do, that is better for the players, then we'd have to do it for all the games, and that there's just not enough time or space or event or setups or whatever. I think similar to what we were saying earlier, if people were more happy to pay the appropriate amount for majors, we would see more people. I mean, I don't know. I can't really speak to. It's going to be a bunch of individual people making different individual decisions about why they don't want to go or why they do want to go, or why they can't afford to go or can't justify or whatever. But ultimately, I think there's probably a good chunk more people that would go if the calculus of the major was more transparent. Like, I know it's in Schaumburg and not Chicago, so it's kind of hard to compare to something like Genesis, but you're still paying for a ginormous space, and there's just a shitload of stuff to do and a bunch of people there and 12 streams and like all this stuff to do. It's not like I think if the Midwest doesn't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I'm paying, $100 to go to a kind of good Melee tournament, that's not what it is. It's a really fucking good fighting game tournament that has Melee at it. It also has Street Fighter and Guilty Gear and all these other games. It's got a million things to do beyond Melee.
That you can buy.
You can buy popcorn. Everyone loves popcorn. The popcorn baron goes crazy. But I think you just have to like be willing to have an experience that isn't centered wholly on your game. Mm-hmm. And if you can't do that, that's okay. But that is what the experience of these fighting game majors are. Your game is going to be treated the same as every other game, which is fairly and equitably, but not, the experience of one game isn't going to be $100 experience. It's the experience of the whole event. That's the $100 experience, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's a very, very good answer, and fits with our topic on our last episode. Whatever we said about DreamHack can probably apply to this. If we want to be bigger and have sustainable tournaments, we might have to be okay with not being the main thing in a big tournament, or being okay with not going to a big tournament because we're not the main thing. So I think that was a very good answer. I hope to see Combo Breakers succeed. And in terms of questions, that's basically it. Now, Edwin, we have a new segment that we've been running. We do not have a question for it. Do you want to make one up right now for Connor, or should we let Sleeping Dogs lie and move on?
What? I got time.
Let's ask something for Connor. I thought of something. Okay.
Cool. So, a couple weeks ago, Connor, I'm not sure if you are a fan of the show, but we had Magi on, as I mentioned earlier. She was a great guest. She had a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, we were wrong on a lot of things in terms of Smash and esports teams, but I think it was still a great episode. And unfortunately, she did have to leave early, so we actually missed out on her questions. This did, however, birth a new segment called "What Would Magi Say?" What would Magi answer? What was it?
What would Magi answer?
I think I remember this.
What would Magi answer?
We were driving up to Major Upset that day, actually.
Perfect. So, Steven was asked the same exact thing when he came on the last episode. He was also asked a question of what would Magi answer. So, unfortunately, the patron channel where we usually ask this was a little clogged up with other stuff going on, so we did not actually get to ask for what would Magi answer questions. But, Edwin, you seem pretty confident that you have one.
Yeah, so one of the what would Magi answer questions that we asked in the past was what is Magi's favorite breakfast, right? So
Ah, yes.
so now I want to kind of invert that, or at least ask something a little different. What do you think? What do you think Magi would answer for her favorite dinner?
I don't know Magi all that well.
I don't think that's
Um,
important to what would Magi
Yeah,
do.
that's not
What
really
would Magi
quite.
answer?
Yeah.
what would Magi answer? I don't know. She's from Baton Rouge,
Ooh, maybe
right?
a big crawfish.
I was gonna say like a gator,
An etouffee. Gator etouffee.
like gator etouffee. Yeah, fuck it.
Muffalata.
That sounds so good, actually. Ooh, Jade, what if we got? No.
Hey,
no, we
don't
can't.
plan dinner. we're almost done. We'll let you eat. We're almost done.
Wait, get them
okay.
on. I need to hear their answer.
yeah. Get changed.
Wait,
Very
yeah,
important.
Jade, they're inviting you.
Celebrity shot.
You don't want to take a celebrity shot? You just answer the question. What would
What?
Magi answer
Uh,
for the best their favorite dinner or whatever?
her favorite dinner.
Her favorite dinner.
Hamburger.
Hamburger
Hmm.
from
Pretty good.
McDonald's.
You know what? I don't know
Hans?
if she screams red meat eater to
Tacos
me.
exist in the
That was a
world.
weird way of saying that.
I'm sure. What?
It could be
She
it
she
could
totally
be
she had a burger at.
Hamburger.
Didn't she had a burger?
I think
at
that's a pretty good answer. Burger.
Hamburger. Yeah.
You know what? I kind
I
of
like my answer more.
I ragged on my good friend Edwin for this, but his answer a couple weeks ago to breakfast might be good. I think it might just be some chicken tenders and mac and cheese.
Chicken
Yeah, I
tendies
said
is
mac and
what I
cheese
wanted to
for-
say.
Yeah, it was very it was kind of infantilizing her, but then Steven came on and was like, "No, that's right." So I have to give you credit here. I would wonder. You know what? Maybe another question we'll ask in the future is birthday meal. Birthday meal is kind of a big one. It's a special thing. What do you get for your birthday? That might be a little more, a little more bigger than a little more bigger. What does that mean? It might
More
be a bigger
bigger.
vacation, and maybe it would be something better than chicken fingers and mac and cheese. But I think that'll be my answer. And eventually, I don't know. We'll have her on and we'll figure it all out.
Yeah, I would
We'll
like
never
to
figure it
figure it out and then correct her and be like, no. I don't think Magi would say. I don't think
Yeah,
Magi
yeah.
would say this.
No, I think you're
I
wrong.
like that
No,
bit.
I think she would say mac and cheese. Yeah. Now, Connor, we will let you make your dinner, which might be gator etouffee, but we have one last segment here. Of course, this is the
Touching
unnamed segment,
grass.
affectionately known by the fans as Touching Grass. Okay, so it seems like you're a fan. This is where, for anyone who is not familiar, this is where we talk about what's going on in our lives outside of Smash. Because all we talk about is Smash, so it's important to see ourselves as multifaceted human beings. I will go first. I'll let everyone have some time. I actually have a couple different things. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the NBA playoffs. I've been watching a ton of them. A couple of crazy episodes have happened. My Philadelphia 76ers were the only team to make a clean sweep, and we are currently resting. And I think it's important for me to say this right now, because next episode we are probably going to be on the
How are
brink of
things going?
elimination in the second round. So it'll be a lot less fun to say that then. But
Kings are
really,
up.
if I'm thinking about stuff that I've been doing, I have been watching the NBA. The thing that was most, prominent in my life the past couple weeks was I went to Montreal. It was the first time going to Canada, first time in Montreal, I guess, as well. By
You've
by
never
that
been
measure.
to Canada?
Hey man, get off my back. There was a
All
global
right.
pandemic.
Not even before that.
I was a wee boy. I think I wanted to go to Gummel 2019, but I took a long time getting my passport, and then I don't know. I went to Canada though. I do have a passport. I went to Canada. I did not smuggle anything in, and sorry, it sounded very suspicious saying I didn't smuggle anything in, then coughing. But I went to Canada for my cousin's bachelor party. I am in the wedding, so I went. Honestly, being around a bunch of guys who are drinking who I don't really know can lead to some moments that are not the most fun. But overall, I had a very fun weekend. I got to see Soup Ostrich, who is one of the best dressed Smash players ever. Got to hang out with him in Montreal, and got to just walk around Montreal. I got to see kind of the cooler areas. I got to see downtown. I got to see Old Montreal. It was a city that was very rooted in history in terms of its old buildings, which is very cool. But it was a city that also was able to kind of have a lot of charm in kind of the scragglier bits. I was in an area that was had a lot of cool stuff going on, had a lot of cool shops, but also was right near an abandoned building that had like littered with graffiti, and there was like an old ice rink that was all rusted out. It was all like oddly charming in a way of how shitty it was, and everything was French, which honestly was kind of cool.
Really?
Yeah, I took a couple years of it in high school, so I like going bonjour. Yes, so I will have the. I like saying that. It was fun. They don't believe you. I had a couple of people. I would say bonjour, and they would go hello. They do not. They did not believe me. But nevertheless, I had a fun experience. I'm hoping to go to Canada again. I unfortunately have to miss Battle BC for the wedding. That was the bachelor party before, but hoping I can go to Gommel. And if there's a reason to go to Montreal, if anyone wants to throw a tournament up there, I had a great time in Montreal. I would do it again.
Let me hit up
Squid, Lunar Dusk, yeah, hit everyone up. Edwin, what about yourself? What have you been up to recently?
I've got a lot. I've been watching Survivor a ton.
Oh God, you have been.
I've been
actually like a unsafe amount. I think you've been going at a pace that is way too quick, right?
Yeah, I've been watching a ton, like every evening. I've been going out to the movies a lot more. I've just kind of made it a regular part of my week. Like me and my spouse will go see something. We're seeing Polite Society this week. Last week I saw Beau is Afraid, which I wasn't really crazy about, but I didn't see that with my spouse. My spouse hates Ari Aster movies, so I.
Beau is Afraid, more like Edwin is underwhelmed.
Yes. Yeah, you've been paying attention.
That's what you said while walking out, right?
Yeah,
I'm rolling my eyes at that one.
But none of those are my real answer because those are boring. The fun answer is that just through my dad and through the rest of my family that's super into cricket, I've been relearning sort of what's been going on in the international cricket world. And it's kind of funny revisiting it because I used to follow it a little bit when I was a kid, just, because my family watched it and everything. I followed it a little bit more when at my old workplace, because I worked with a bunch of Indian people who were super into cricket, so I just kind of relearned the sport, picked it up by osmosis. And now the Cricket World Cup is happening this year, so I actually I made a spreadsheet of past World Cup storylines and some of the best, and I made a separate sheet
cricket
of
stats.
of cricket stats and batsmen and bowlers that I'm supposed to know, who's important and who's not. And it's very funny seeing recurring patterns happen in cricket over and over again and thinking of American analogies for them, or just analogies in other sports or fields of competition, right? And I've come to really think, and I teased this to you a little bit before the show.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm not just saying this to curry favor. I really think India and cricket are like the Philadelphia Eagles. I think India and cricket, they're just so every year India is always a contender in cricket, or every World Cup, India always has amazing batters. They always have a lot of talent. They do great against the really hard teams in the league. And then sometimes they just they make things difficult for themselves in a way that's it's kind of like the Eagles, why are we down 0-14 against the New Orleans Saints? And then sometimes you lose the game and it's I can't believe we lost that. Or it ends up being a blowout victory for you anyway because you go on a 30-0 run or something. Just really a lot of just very pointless heartbreak that sometimes manages to pop its head at very inopportune times, and other times just pure dominance, always having some of the best batsmen in the world, batsmen meaning basically batters in cricket. So India is known for just yeah, so India is known for just always having really good batters. So the year that India lost to New Zealand in the World Cup, basically they had the number 1 and 2 batsmen in the world, which is and what happened is so I'll just quickly mention this as just a very unfortunate thing that happened. So they entered the World Cup in 2019 as one of the 2 really big favorites with Australia. Australia are kind of just the super dominant team in cricket. They're they've been good since the 90s. They're just always good. And basically India was India and Australia were expected to be the 2 favorites heading into it. And what happened to India is that, like, so in cricket, once you get out as a batter, you're done. Like, you literally cannot go up to the plate again. So India had the two best batsmen in the world. It's basically like the equivalent of having like Zayn and IBDW in a crew battle. So like if you're planning to like go up against another
Not J
crew,
Mook.
yeah, or yeah, J Mook and Zayn. I guess that would be, but basically like two people who on any given day are the best player on the field, right? So like if you enter a crew battle with those two, you expect like the combined stocks that they take is like, if not the entire opposing crew, it's like 3/4 of them. Like basically one of them is going to go hamburgers, right? And basically what happened in cricket and what happened to India was like the two best batsmen on the team, the two best batsmen in the world combined for like 2 runs, and they were out. They were out by like 5% through the game. And once you're out in cricket, you're done. So
You're
it's
out.
basically like a win probability jump of like minus 80% or whatever. Like just
Wow.
completely like ruined their chances of winning, and they lost to New Zealand in the semifinals. So that was pretty devastating. So they're entering it this year. Hopefully they don't fuck it up again. But this year is pretty interesting. It seems like England is pretty good. Australia is pretty good. India and New Zealand are pretty good. And then there's a few teams beneath that are kind of like very top heavy, or they have like some talent, but the roster's not as fully fleshed out. But yeah, it's kind of fun relearning this.
It seems
talking
like
about
it.
that. Yeah, no, you'll expect to hear more. I kind of one last thing I'll
Expect to hear
say.
more.
Yeah, I mean, one last thing I'll
Even
say about
more?
it, yeah, it's because it's not like it's not like super popular in America yet. Like it's not like well known or established. So a ton of like stat keeping is not necessarily like accessible. Like it's kind of
That's us.
hard to
Let's get
find
into
good.
it.
Yeah, so this is one thing that I thought. I thought it would be really funny if I started a website or like something that was like a primer to cricket from someone who doesn't know anything about the sport. And it's basically just like details my journey of like learning what cricket is, like what's happening in the world of international cricket, and just literally something that details how in like 365 days I learned everything there was to know about cricket. So I just had this idea. I think it'd be kind of fun. I don't really know if I have the energy for it, but it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting
Sounds
because
like
I think
a project.
You
Yeah.
seem to have a lot of energy on the subject, so
I'm just kind of shocked there isn't like a really good high quality like there's some videos you can find here and there, but
this is how Melee Stats gets into cricket.
yeah, maybe this is where we finally become miscellaneous stories. Maybe this is the
Yeah, I don't know what you're
rebrand
talking
we
about. Now, Edwin, I do have one question. I hope this doesn't set you off again, but you mentioned that India is kind of like the Philadelphia Eagles. Would you consider India's fans as obnoxious as the Philadelphia Eagles fans? And before you start to answer, could you answer this in the spirit of the upset? Could you answer this in a New Zealand accent?
all right, yeah, all right.
The answer is
Brandon,
no.
give me that way. Give me that way. India's fans are just like the Philadelphia Eagles.
Wow. I don't. Okay, so I think New Zealanders they're a little more quaint, right? They'd be like, yes, Connor. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to say on the subject, but if there's nothing else you'd like to say about cricket, we could go on to
Cricket.
whatever you're thinking.
Yeah, I just
Will?
love Tim Bat and Guy Montgomery. That's my starting.
I will
point.
say, I think that was not my best New Zealand accent. I did a Kiwi accent in Connor's car, and I think
Oh,
Jade
it was actually so
disassociated.
good.
Jade thought there was someone else in the car.
It was very good.
I appreciate it.
Do New Zealanders say "sar" or
No,
is that
not
just
really.
Australia?
They,
Okay.
the thing that gets me going on the New Zealand thing is what we say
Gets you
like
going.
soft E, like 7. They really pull in 7. You know?
Sivan.
Yeah.
You know what, Edwin?
Peter Jackson.
We're
You know what I
going
mean?
to
Jackson.
we're going to do a trip from the tip of the South Island to the top of the tip of the North Island. Me and you.
That'd be fun.
No,
And
in
then
New
we're gonna-
Zealand they call him the Biggie and the Smallie.
And then
Being
we're gonna come
small-
back and we're going to then we're gonna come back and then we're gonna have perfect Kiwi accents.
Dude, I'm just
Okay.
saying, you
We're
think
gonna
my
miss, like-
Pipsqueak accent is annoying now? After Festa, when we're at Festa, it's gonna dial up like to
All right, I'm
an
cutting you
11 out
off.
of 10.
Connor has to go. He has to eat dinner, and he
I'm
has to talk
hungry.
about touching grass.
I'll say
Connor.
the one thing. I won't keep it long. I'm looking for a job.
Aren't we
Um,
all?
so I have customer support experience. If any viewers know, the thing that I've been doing other than Melee these days, we just got off of 2 rather large endeavors for us. They're not majors or anything, but Major Upset and Smash Camp were 2 weeks apart, and those were just about a week and a half ago. It's the end of that. We've been just sort of vibing. The thing that I've been doing lately is I'm inspired by my good friend Melee Papa. I have started trying to
Littering.
get a full clear, full combo, which is a term for hitting all of the notes without missing any or overstrumming in Rock Band 2.
Ooh.
I'm like
2.
20%. It's the one that I grew up with.
Okay.
Which instrument?
You play the. I'm starting with lead guitar, but I'm going to do bass, and if I feel very much inspired, I'll buy a drum kit and do drums. But
You're not gonna do
That's 2?
vocals.
Wait, Guitar
Do you
Hero
know-
2 or Rock
no,
Band 2?
Rock Band 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention.
Do you know how the mechanics of vocals in that game actually
Oh
work?
my God! Do not. He will talk for. No. We actually have to end the episode. You cannot ask that question. He's going to talk for longer than he did for the cricket segment.
Okay.
Okay, Connor, you've been such a great guest.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being on. Does it, if people want to follow you, where can they do so?
Yeah, follow me at the Twitter here. Wait, there. Follow level1_TV. Also, that's the organization that I co-founded. We're gonna do some more stuff, hopefully. Follow I don't know. Follow Smash Camp. We just finished Smash Camp. We might have some more stuff coming. Follow us on Twitter to find out. That's it. Don't follow me
Connor,
anywhere
you're a
else.
wonderful guest. Maybe we'll have you more at some point in the future to talk about Rock Band and Wheel.
Sure.
Make sure that's the episode where Edwin's doing something else. Maybe we'll get
Cool.
like Ambi on because
Okay, sounds
unfortunately I think we don't have enough time to bring up Rock Band vocals around Edwin.
Are you?
No, but you're very fun to talk to. I'm glad that you're on. I think you're one of the
Sorry.
perfect guests to talk about all of the different ways that Melee's landscape has been changing over the past few weeks and what's going to look like in the future.
You could have had someone better. That's okay.
Well,
Next
I guess
time.
so. J-Mook keeps leaving me on red, so what are you gonna do?
J-Mook,
but-
he'd have a lot to say about money in Melee.
Dude, he'd be so funny. It'd be
I agree.
effortlessly cool, and everything you say would be funnier than everything I say, which is very effortful.
We should get him on Four Side Fights Live next time we do it.
I don't know what you mean by we. Okay. Connor, thank you so much for being on, and thank you for everyone for
my
watching.
side.
If you want to watch these episodes as they are live, twitch.tv/Melee Stats. The episodes go onto YouTube on the Melee Stats archive. You can follow us over there, or subscribe, I guess is the term for that. And we also have Melee Stats, which is our main channel where we have long-form videos, so you can also keep an eye out for that. Twitter.com/Melee Stats Pod. So we're going to be having daily reporting on locals and regionals and stuff like that. We're also going to have links to the articles that we put over on MeleeStats.co, such as Monday Morning Marth and When's Melee. And if you love everything we do and you just want to support us in any way possible, Patreon.com/Melee Stats. Connor, thank you so much for being on, and thanks
Thanks
for
for having
watching. We will be back at some point to discuss what is going on in May. It's been quite a interesting April, so I'm excited to look forward to what happens to next week or our next couple weeks, and we'll be back to talk to you then. All right,
Tune into
peace.
Combo Breaker.
Hey.